ठीक है मैम।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and we would start with our first lesson. We have a little about the revision of our previous things that we have covered so far. We have seen that what is epidemiology. We have discussed this before, that epi means upon, demos mean people. So this is the science of studying the frequency, distribution, determinants of health and disease in human population. But the definition is not limited here. It is also the application of the knowledge for managing health services, for prevention practices, for better policies, as well as planning. So the evidence-based medical practices also encompasses in epidemiology. The one of the great thing that has happened with epidemiology is whenever there is any catastrophe or epidemic, there is a wider role of epidemiology. We have seen previously in World War One, World War Two, in influenza epidemic, and now in the epidemic of COVID-19, that epidemiology deals with very important issues how to prevent it. I would not go into detail, but the number of events we always measure it in numerator. The distribution is in the terms of time, place, and person, and this is also the foundation of our descriptive epidemiology. I would talk more about analytical epidemiology and how the cause and risk factors they are related while we are having our today's lecture. In today's lesson, I would be more concerned about how the epidemiological methods they are used for descriptive and analytical epidemiology. We have talked about our population. It can be relevant population, reference population, population at risk, sample population, and it provides us the denominator. So what are the objectives of epidemiology? It describes the distribution and magnitude of the problem, burden of disease, identifying etiology or risk factors, studying natural history and prognosis of the disease, evaluate new preventive and therapeutic measures, new modes of health and delivery, provide data essential to planning, implementation, evaluation of services, and setting priorities. So all these objectives, they have been derived from the definition that I have shown you in my first slide. Dr. Last was a person who has given a due importance to the evaluation of the services and setting priorities, because we can't do prevention till we have our objectives very clear with us. So the changing pattern in disease, we have seen that how the epidemiology helped us in finding out the life expectancies and changing patterns. The history of epidemiology is very important, and we have Sasa in 400 BC, the first person known to have examined the relationship between the occurrence of the disease and environmental influences. So the knowledge of epidemiology, it is not a new thing, and even before Christ, many hundred of years before the birth of the Christ, the people are thinking how the occurrence of the disease is related with certain environmental factors. We have already talked in detail about Snow, how he conducted his studies of cholera outbreak, what was the role of two companies that were providing water in different areas of London and how that was affecting the epidemic. We have also discussed about the golden pump and the role of John Snow in mapping all those areas where there were more mortalities rather than the rest of the areas. And he was able to discover the cause of the disease even before the Vibrio cholera was microscopically discovered, and people were known to Vibrio cholera. So he was able to discover the cause of disease and its recurrence and how to prevent it. In 1930 to 1940, another great man, Edward Jenner, who was very keen in developing a vaccine against smallpox. We know that the smallpox was a disease that was causing epidemics, and more than 15 million people per year were affected due to smallpox. Smallpox was the disease that was not only causing the scarring and face deformations, but also causing blindness, disabilities, and decreasing the quality of life. After that variolation process, that is basically putting the scab or hair from the infected person or the pus from the infected person into the healthy person, so that he can develop immunity against smallpox, and he can save himself from all those miseries of smallpox. But this variolation was very dangerous, because at the same time that variolation causes lot of deaths, mortalities, and morbidities, because some of the people, their immune system is causing not the defense of them, but it is causing the disability and even death. So at that time, the Edward Jenner was the person who came up with the first vaccine against smallpox, and that he developed from a cowpox. And it is a very interesting story that the Edward Jenner has a maid. She told Edward Jenner that in my village, it is a very famous saying that all those people who have cowpox any time in their life, they are protected against smallpox. Edward Jenner was fascinated by this idea that how one disease can cause cross immunity against another disease, and he started working on it. And with that idea in his mind, he was able to develop a vaccine against smallpox that was basically developed through cowpox. The cowpox was the disease that was in animals. It was causing more sufferings in animals, but in humans, it was a very mild disease. So he was able to inoculate through vaccination the cowpox virus into humans. And the humans, those who developed those disease that is similar to cowpox, but it was of much milder nature, and later on they got protection against smallpox. So this was one of the turning point in the history of epidemiology, because the vaccination that started from Edward Jenner, later it has to be offered to whole of the world, and successfully the smallpox has been eliminated from the whole of this globe. And now we know that smallpox virus, it is present only in two different areas. Um, May I ask my class if anyone knows where the smallpox virus is still present? Anybody from the class? Do you know that the smallpox virus is still present on this earth, and where it is present?
मैम लैब्स वगैरह में होगा.
You are very right. It is in the lab. It is present, one in Atlanta, USA, and the second in USSR. That is now Russia. Okay. So we have still that virus on Earth. And till that virus is not destroyed, our globe can't be protected from another epidemic of that virus. Another thing is, it is under surveillance, or it is only used for research purposes. However, all the organizations, they are concerned that it can be used for some other purposes, but it is now used only for research purposes, and it is continuously under surveillance. Till that virus still present on Earth, we are still having that danger of another epidemic of that disease. Again, another milestone achievement was during World War, because the research methods and theoretical underpinning of epidemiology was greatly enforced, implemented, and it was planned on this earth. These are not the only people who have contributed to the epidemiology and its growth and development. We know that Hippocrates, about 460 to 377 before Christ, who is also known as the father of medicine, he talked about the environment, diseases, epidemics, endemics. We also know that John Grant, who was the main person behind the vital data, and he was the one who presented the bills of mortality and observed excess of male mortality and male births. We all know now that this is a reality, that there are more births of the male child, and there is unfortunately more mortality among the male members of any family. So the first person who gave that idea was John Grant. Then we have William Farr, who gave that idea of vital statistics that births, marriages, as well as deaths, they all has to be recorded. And from that data, we can link it with diseases, with life expectancy, and we can even promote health, we can prolong life, and we can prevent the disease. We have already talked about Faroe Islands and the beautiful story of Dr. Panam, Snow and Bud, who did the epidemic investigation of measles, cholera, and typhoid, respectively. So in Faroe Islands, there was a measles epidemic at that time when Dr. Panam was there, and how he was able to come to certain conclusions about measles. We have talked about it. I would not go into detail, but this is how the history of epidemiology that has been evolved by those important investigations. So observation and descriptive epidemiology is always considered as the backbone of epidemiology. We also know about Jay Goldberg, who has given his words about niacin deficiency and in prevention of pellagra. It was seen pellagra as the disease of D's, dermatitis, dementia, diarrhea, and unfortunately death. So these four Ds, they were prevented by introducing niacin, and niacin has been able to control the all those catastrophes that has been produced by pellagra. Now, after 1940, there were many important experiments that have been done on non-common diseases, and those diseases also have been a part of epidemiology since then. So, how we do different epidemiological investigations? What are the tools of epidemiology? That consisted of morbidity, mortality, disability, attributes of the disease, outcome of the disease, and environmental factors. Variable, a character or factor having at least two or more values. We have already talked about it that there are discrete, there are continuous. The continuous variables are those that have decimals in them, or like that can have intermediate values between the whole numbers. For example, age. Age can be in years, it can be in months, it can be in days. However, the discrete variables, they are whole numbers. For example, how many children one should have or one is having. Again, it is a whole number. It can be either 2 or 3. It cannot be 2.5 or 2.6, etc. Similarly, we have qualitative diseases. We have quantitative measurements. In qualitative, we are more having the qualitative measures for air pollution, for weather. However, we also have the quantitative measures for air pollution like AQI index, etc. Similarly, weather, again, we can have a good weather, we can have a rainy season, we can have a weather that is hot. And similarly, we can also measure it quantitatively on the basis of temperature, that what is the temperature today, etc. So the quantitative measures then always need some unit. For example, if the height is in inches or in feet, it would have different values. Similarly, the cholesterol level and blood sugar levels. We all know that blood sugar levels, when it is measured in millimoles per liter, it has different value when we compare it with milligrams per deciliter. So the rate, ratio, proportion, and percentages. We already have talked about it now. For just having a look over it, how the ratio is being expressed. We have talked about it that the ratio in nominator and denominator both are independent of each other. It means that ratio is the expression of relationship between independent frequencies, or if there is a sex ratio, it may be between male and female. Both male as well as female are independent of each other, and both values, they are not the part of each other. However, in rate, we always have denominator and numerator. They are dependent on each other. The denominator in a defined population, in a defined place, and in defined time, while in numerator, we have something that is the part of denominator. For example, how many events have been from that population, and we have to multiply it with constant. Let me give you an example. For example, we talk about maternal mortality ratio. In maternal mortality ratio, we always talk about the number of the deaths of the females of reproductive age due to the cause that is directly related with the pregnancy and not due to some accidental cause, and after even 42 days of termination of pregnancy. And denominator we took is as ratio as 1,000 live births. So all those women who are in reproductive age and who are having the mortality due to any cause that is aggravated by pregnancy and not due to accidental causes, they are not the part of the denominator because they are not being counted when we are counting 1,000 live births. So it means that both are independent to each other. So it is a ratio. However, for the rate of maternal mortality rate, how we are going to express it, we describe it as the number of the women who are of reproductive age and they die due to the cause that is aggravated by pregnancy and not due to the accidental causes, and even after 42 days of termination of pregnancy divided by all those women of reproductive age and who are pregnant, then this becomes a rate because the nominator is the part of denominator. So in events, we have births, deaths, disease, and disability in certain population. While in denominator, we have the population at risk, especially incidence. We have talked about it, that elderly age is a risk for having essential hypertension. Similarly, the breast cancer is more in females, so the population at risk would be the female gender. Similarly, the measles is more common in children, so the child population will be at risk. The relevant population is all those groups that are related with that disease. For example, when we are talking about pregnancy, we know that females in their reproductive age or in their fertility age, they are the relevant population. All those females who are either pre-menopausal or who are post-menopausal, they are not the relevant population for having this group. Then we have person years. We would talk more about it in when we are discussing the cohort studies. Person year based on total amount or time of exposure. For example, in family planning methods, road traffic accidents, we always need how many persons per year who are affected by this. Then we have defined age or social class, mortality in age groups, and we divide these age groups according to our different socio-economical classes. The constant is selected according to the outcome. In my last class, we have talked a lot about constant and how we are using it. These are usually used to avoid fractions. For example, I have given you the example of maternal mortality ratio. Time, any specified time, usually a year. Place, specified boundaries of the place. Proportions are rates in which the denominator does not reflect a stable population. For example, proportion on the patients of hepatitis among total outdoor cases. So the percentage, whenever we take the constant as 100, we take it as percentage. In maternal mortality ratio, anybody in the class remember what we talked last time? What is the constant of maternal mortality ratio? लास्ट टाइम हमने क्लास में बात की थी कि कांस्टेंट हम इटर्नल मोर्टेलिटी रेशियो में लेते हैं. व्हाट इज दैट कांस्टेंट? It is 100,000, right? Why we take it 100,000? Because it is universally accepted that the constant should be taken in order to avoid fractions. As maternal mortality ratio in many countries of the world, it has decreased and it is under control. So it would become in fractions. So to avoid those fractions, we multiply it with 100,000. And whenever we are comparing, the constant would remain the same. For example, we know that in Pakistan, the most of the maternal mortality ratio is in Balochistan. It is one of the province where we have a highest maternal mortality ratio. On the other hand, in other areas, we have lesser maternal mortality ratio, and the national average is about 342 females per 100,000 female 100,000 population who lost their life during pregnancy and the causes that are aggravated by pregnancy. So this constant that is helping us in finding out that the fractions should be avoided and how we can compare it with other regions. In Balochistan, it is even more than 778 per 100,000 females per 100,000 females of reproductive age. So this helps us to compare different rates, ratios, as well as proportions and percentages. Incidence, we have talked about the incidence that it is the new cases, the frequency of occurrence of new cases in a population at risk. So what is the population at risk? The population at risk is the population that can develop that disease in that specific area and those people who are present in that specific time frame. So those are population at risk. So the new cases into 1,000 in incidence, if we take the incidence rate, we always want to know the new cases. And the new cases can only be known if we know the baseline, if we know what was the previous rate or what was the previous number of the new cases, because the name new, it can only be given, or this nomenclature can only be used if we know the previous cases. We can't say that this is a new number if we have not maintained our baseline or record of all the cases. It should be in specific time. It should be in specified population. It is among population at risk. Indicate the activity of the disease, and it is good for acute diseases and it is very difficult in chronic diseases. Now my question is here, can we have the incidence rates from the people who are admitted in a hospital? Anybody from the class? Dr. Shehzad, are you with me?
जी मैडम.
Can we have the incidence rates from a hospital data or from the people who are admitted in the hospitals?
मैम हॉस्पिटल्स के अंदर जो पेशेंट्स आते हैं वो डिफरेंट एरियाज के अंदर से आते हैं, एक स्पेसिफिक लोकल एरिया के अंदर से वो नहीं होते.
Okay, Dr. Irfan and Dr.
सफिया.
Safia,
जी मैडम.
what is your idea about it?
Madam, I think if population
You can write your answer in the chat box, please. Dr. Safia?
No, ma'am, we cannot take the hospitalized patient as a new case because one is a location, second is they are not true representative of their population at risk.
And third is we don't have the record of all the cases. If any person who is coming, how can we know that it is a new case and it has not been presented anywhere else in all the hospitals of that area? So we have to specify our population, we have to specify our time, and we have to know the new case. If we can't know, if we can't label it as a new case, it is very difficult to say incident. So I totally agree with all of you. Okay, right. However, if in another scenario, if a hospital has a drainage area and only the referred cases are being referred to that center, and they always referred it with record. They always maintain a good record, especially where there are services of family practitioners. The family practitioners have the complete record of the family, and they know that this case has to be referred to that hospital. At that time, when the complete record is available, and when the people who are coming from a specified population in a specified time, and we know that these are the people who are coming from that geographical area, yes, we can know the incidence rate even if they are admitted in the hospital. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So some incidence rates, we have talked last time about attack rate, and it is infectious diseases, hospital admission rate, admission in the hospital per unit population, secondary attack rate, number of contacts developing disease within the maximum incubation period, divided by total susceptible and exposed to that agent into 100. So what is the difference between susceptible population and exposed population? Last time I have told you that there are different parameters to find out what is the susceptible population, exposed population, infected population, and recovered population. And that on all those parameters, we have developed our SEERD model, that is called SIERD model. What is susceptible? All those who are going to get that problem or disease, they are susceptible. All those who have certain type of resistance or who are not going to have that problem or disease, they are not susceptible to it. It is not possible that all those people who are susceptible, they are getting exposure. So all those among the susceptible who are exposed to the harmful agent, that are our exposed population. Again, all those who are exposed, they are not going to have the infection if they are exposed to a very pathogenic or virulent organism. So those who are having the signs and symptoms and who are subclinical or asymptomatic infection, they are our infected pool. From those who are getting that infected, they may recovered or they may die. There are two options only. So those recovered would become a recovered pool, and those who have been removed, they are those where death have taken place. So we have SEERD model, that is susceptible, in exposed, infected, recovered, or removed. Removed are those where death has taken place. What is prevalence? The prevalence is both the new and old cases existing at a given point in time or over a period of time. So the point prevalence is when we are taking a point to find out what are the new cases and old cases during that period of time. And what is period prevalence? When we have a whole period of time in order to know what are the new and old cases that are coming up during this time. Now, there are two very important concepts here. One is when we are taking point prevalence, the denominator is always population examined. While when we are taking period prevalence, our denominator is mid-interval population. What is mid-interval population?
Mid-year.
Mid-year. Usually we, very right, Dr. Shehzad, we take it as a mid-year population. Why? Because we know that in the start of the year and in the end of the year, the population fluctuates. Similarly, if we are taking a period prevalence, we have to take a start period and the end period. And the population would be different in the start of the period as compared to the end of the period, especially if the period is on years or if the period is very long. So we always prefer to take the mid-interval population. In period prevalence, whatever is the period, whether it is in years or in months or in days, we always go for mid interval population or mid-period population, rather than taking the population at the start of that period or at the end of that period. And then we have to multiply it with constant. So the prevalence is incidence into duration. As our duration is increasing, our prevalence is also increasing. And same is the case with the incidence. If the number of new cases that is rising, our prevalence will rise. Now here I have a question for you. It is a common sense question. Just you have to think about it, that if there is a disease that has a chronicity attached to it, and that remains with lot of complications, and it leads to lesser mortality, how would be its prevalence? May I repeat my question? अगर एक
Yes,
बीमारी
ma'am, please.
ऐसी है जिसकी अंदर कॉम्प्लिकेशंस ज़्यादा हैं और जो अमवात कम कर रही है, और उसकी कॉम्प्लिकेशंस में डिसेबिलिटी मौजूद है, तो उसकी प्रेवलेंस ज़्यादा होगी या कम होगी?
I think कम हो जाएगी.
The prevalence would be more, prevalence ज़्यादा होगी क्योंकि उसमें डेथ्स कम हैं, तो उसकी ड्यूरेशन ज़्यादा हो रही है उस डिजीज़ की, उसमें कॉम्प्लिकेशंस हैं, डिसेबिलिटी है, जिस तरह हमने भी थोड़ी देर पहले बात की स्मॉल पॉक्स की. अब स्मॉल पॉक्स में देयर आर ब्लाइंडनेस, हर साल 15 मिलियन नए केसेस आ रहे थे, वेरी ह्यूज नंबर ऑफ केसेस, एंड देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ न्यू केसेस और द इंसिडेंस वाज वेरी लार्ज. इसके अलावा जो उसमें सेकंड चीज थी, डिसेबिलिटी थी, ब्लाइंड हो रहे हैं लोग, स्कारिंग हो रही है फेस पर, एंड दे कीप ऑन हैविंग इट थ्रू आउट देयर लाइफ. मोर्टेलिटी उसमें निस्बतन कम थी, लेकिन उसकी प्रेवलेंस बहुत ज्यादा थी. सिमिलर इज द केस विद ट्यूबरक्लोसिस. ट्यूबरक्लोसिस में हमें पता है कि अमवात भी हो जाती हैं, लेकिन बहुत से लोग ट्यूबरक्लोसिस के साथ बहुत सी कॉम्प्लिकेशंस का शिकार हो जाते हैं. मिसाल के तौर पर उनके लंग्स खराब हो जाएंगे, उनमें फाइब्रोसिस होगा, सांस की दुश्वारी होगी, इट इज डिफिकल्ट फॉर देम टू ब्रीथ. If it is a tuberculous spine, Carey spine, there are even paraplegias, and there are other disabilities. So the prevalence of the disease would increase if the duration of the disease is more, and if its incidence is also more. And however, if there is a disease that is causing high mortality and less disability and complications, that would have less prevalence, right? We always show it in the form of a bathtub. जब आपने bathtub देखा है, उसमें क्या होता है, एक तरफ से एक source होता है पानी का, it can be a tap, right? And there is an exit of the water, एक तरफ से पानी उसमें से खारिज हो रहा है. अगर उसके टैप बहुत ज्यादा पानी फेंक रहा है तो प्रेवलेंस ज्यादा होगी. इट इज जस्ट लाइक इंसिडेंस इज मोर. द सेकेंड इज, अगर वहां से ड्रेनेज ज्यादा है तो क्या होगा, ड्यूरेशन कम हो रही है, इट मीन्स प्रेवलेंस इज रिड्यूसिंग. अगर उसकी ड्रेनेज कम है तो फिर क्या होगा, प्रेवलेंस इज इंक्रीजिंग. सो वी कॉल इट एपिडेमियोलॉजिकल bathtub, that there is a source that is causing new cases or incidents, and there is a drainage that is causing lesser duration to stay, so it is affecting the prevalence. The prevalence is very important because it gives us the burden of the disease. जितना पानी उस bathtub में जमा होगा, that is our burden of disease. Disease, new cases, incidence है, वो कहाँ से आ रहा है, पानी की नल में से. उसमें से अगर मोर्टेलिटी कम हो रही है, ड्रेनेज कम हो रहा है, तो वो पानी उस टब में जमा हो रहा है. That would be helpful in planning services, in comparing progress, and know what should be our next line of action. Our mortality rates, we talked about whenever the mortality, we know if we have very less and effective policies, both would have effect on our mortality rates. If we have lesser access to the facilities, lesser health resources, lesser expenditure on health, it would increase our mortality rate. On the other hand, if we have effective policies, we have our good health systems, our vaccination programs are working well, our prevention program is working well, our hospitals are working well, then the mortality rates would be reduced. We have crude death rate. The crude death rate is defined as the deaths in a year divided by mid-year population into 1,000. It is crude because deaths differ with different ages and in the two sexes. We know that in crude death rate, the infant mortality rate is causing lot of burden of mortality in our country. So the crude death rate is not a very good indicator. Similarly, we know that maternal mortality rate in certain areas is very high, especially as I have said that in maternal mortality ratio in Balochistan is more than 780 per 100,000 females. So the mortality rate of crude mortality rate that also increased due to the increased maternal mortality ratio. This means that we have to differentiate between different genders, between different ages in order to have the correct policies. The second is the specific death rates, cause specific death rates. We also talk about the case fatality ratio, and you have seen in the time of COVID-19, we have talked a lot about case fatality rate. What is the case fatality rate? It is the death of a disease in total patients of that disease. Those patients who have been confirmed through testing, or that would be in denominator. While in nominator, we have all those people who have the death due to the disease. And here again, as I have said, it is a case fatality. We have the confirmed cases. We have another important term that we use in COVID-19, that is infection fatality rate. In infection fatality rate, we have the number of deaths of a disease from the total number of the patients of the disease, either symptomatic or asymptomatic, tested or without testing. So the infection fatality rate has more number of the cases, and it is a little difficult to prove that those people who are asymptomatic and who have not been tested, and they are the part of that denominator. In case fatality rate and ratio in both, we have this ease that the testing would help us in confirmation of those cases. So if a person is tested positive, only then he would be counted in the denominator. That is why the case fatality rate and case fatality ratio of COVID-19 has been used all over the world by WHO, by CDC, by US, by UK, by European countries, by Chinese communicable disease control agencies, and also in Pakistan. We have also the age-specific deaths and sex-specific deaths, and I have already told you that they are especially required where the infant mortality and maternal mortality are the big problems. We also have period-specific death rates. For example, death in a particular period of time or in a particular season. We have seen that in rainy season, in monsoon season, there are more deaths due to gastrointestinal diseases or due to diarrhea, dysentery, and the diseases that are caused by certain organisms. Even mosquitoes, like we have more deaths due to malaria and dengue in specified time. Proportional mortality ratio, deaths due to communicable diseases in total deaths. Similarly, we have births and survival rates. And when we talked about the births and survival rates, we usually talk about the total births in a year into 100 and divided by mid-year population. It is accrued because not all the members of the denominator, they are being considered while we are taking our nominator. So the 5-year survival rate is equal to patients alive after 5 years divided by patients diagnosed or treated into 100. It can be very important to know the survival rates in cancer and heart diseases because people, they are more concerned whether this cancer is aggressive or it is lesser aggressive, or if the heart disease, it has a good prognosis or it has a bad prognosis. So in order to know about the survival rates, we have to calculate it. Here I would stop, and we would have only 2 minutes left, and in these 2 minutes we again have this link to be clicked, and we would start our next lecture. So if you have any question, you are most welcome to ask. If you have no question, then I would talk about standardization. We know that there are the confounding effects. There are the confounding effects for age as well as for sex differences. And I have already talked about that in different age groups, there may be the different rates, and in different genders, there may be the different rates. So we have a standardization process by which we can compare the two cities or the two populations who have been able to give us the true picture of that differences that exist between rates. For example, we know that in USA, most of the people, they are being registered. So we are able to know their deaths in a year in specific population. For example, under 15, 15 to 45, 46 to 60, and 61 plus. When we take all the number of the subjects that are under 15, this is an arbitrary number, and we compare it with the city B that is in USA, that is 2000. So it appears as if the number is much more in Pakistan as compared to in USA. Similarly, we divide it in the groups and we found each number separately for the two cities. Then we found the deaths in each of these numbers. If we took the crore death rate, as I have already told you that it is not a very good indicator, here you can see with example that it is 7.8 per thousand, it is 11 per thousand. It appears as if the Pakistan is doing well with its health system, and in USA, the more work has to be done by the health system in order to improve the crore death rate. But actually what is happening, that under 15, it is 30 while it is 15. So Pakistan has more deaths from 15 to 45.